Fam, I don't even know what to think. Like, I was recommended this video by one of my subscribers, and all I know is that it has a Japanese person narrating it, or the story itself is Japanese related, and y'all know how the Japanese culture is when it comes to this paranormal and scary shit. I'm damn near terrified to even listen to this story or watch this video. What's up, TBS crew? It's your boy Steph back with another reaction. So this time I have a requested video from one of my subscribers named Akira, however you pronounce that. Sorry if I mispronounced it. It's called Horror Show Presents The Enigma of the Amigara Fault by Junji. Yeah, this is definitely Japanese because I probably butchered all of that. But it's by Horror Show Mickey, and this video was uploaded October 4th, 2017. Don't know who Horror Show Mickey is. Don't know anything about this video or Junji, but I was requested this video by one of my subscribers, so we gonna hop up in this. So down in the description will be a link to Horror Show Mickey's channel, a link to this original video so y'all can see it for yourselves without my commentary. Also will be links to all of my social medias. Get at your boy and see the personal life that I don't upload to YouTube. Without further ado, let's get in this, man. Let's see what they talking about. I'm petrified. There's gonna be some scary ass shit in here. I just realized those were eyes. Starting already. You can only dance around destiny for so long before fate pulls you in. J-I-M word.
Do you know the one thing that distinguishes the difference between destiny and fate? My friends, today we're going to venture into a common horror that is overlooked. Something that may have us dwell upon a new fear when confronting the unknown. Of course, we all know that we can never truly see what awaits for us when stepping into the unknown future. But as we live in our daily lives, whether it's fruitful, meaningless, monotonous, or whatever, is it not true that every now and then you've entertained yourself with the idea of having control over your own future? That you tell yourself how you're destined to be something special, to push yourself through the miserable days just so you can finally achieve that blissful dream. The kind of dreams that will make you sleep better at night. Have you go out into the world, defining your own life, becoming the author of your own story. But what if, one day, all that would suddenly change? That without any warning, any preparations, your destiny is intercepted by an unexpected force, and suddenly you're thrown into a story that is out of your control. That, my friends, is what we would call fate, and the true horror within today's story.
I'm nervous as hell.
Meet Owaki, a young man who may have had a unique story of his own, or may have found himself chasing no dreams. Regardless, his story had somehow found itself centering upon an unexpected event. You see, not long ago, Japan had suffered a great earthquake that had leveled several towns and villages. Following the disaster was a large fault that was discovered on the north slope of the Amigara mountain. It was all over the news. They were calling it the eighth wonder of the world. Owaki didn't know why, but when he'd seen the fault on television, he had a sudden need to be there, to see this remarkable discovery in person, more like the inner need to confront it. It was during his long venture of hiking and climbing to the Amigara mountain. That was when he came across a fellow climber, a woman who not only seemed out of place, but Owaki could easily tell that she too was looking for the mountain. Her name was Yoshida, attractive, a bit shy, and who was also infected with the overwhelming desire to confront this mountain when seeing it on the news. A troubled couple, two destinies that have found themselves traveling the wilderness together and chasing one of nature's most fascinating discoveries. An adventurous mystery that may have a pleasant ending for Owaki. As our couple were just moments away from reaching the mountain, that was when they could hear the sounds of other people nearby. A crowd who'd also had the curiosity of learning the secrets behind this unnatural discovery. But when Owaki and Yoshida had finally reached Amigara Mountain, right before them was a mystery that was far more powerful and mesmerizing than they had anticipated. It was true. Thousands of human-shaped holes that were found within the fault, exposed by the earthquake. Just by looking at it, kind of makes you wonder that all this time, being underground, how exactly were they created? Or better question, why were they kept hidden away from human civilization?
I thought those were black people or black figures standing up, not holes.
When the world was introduced to this discovery, teams of scientists, college researchers had wasted no time on unraveling the secrets of the holes. Using a fiberscope to measure the depth of the holes, it seemed like the human silhouettes were far deeper than 30 meters, leaving researchers with the assumption that the holes must be curved within the mountain. But what was the most unsettling feature about these holes was the fact that there was no evidence that these silhouettes were created from the outside. That the only way they can be designed by human hands is if they were created from within the mountain itself. Of course, nobody could find an entrance of any kind, if there ever was one. But better yet, the silhouettes were ancient, and there was no technology that could give man the ability to create such wonders. And even though human science had tried defining the origins and nature of these holes, there was an undeniable reality about this new discovery, a dwelling fear that nobody could prove that these silhouettes were created by the hands of man. For some people, especially Yoshida, the magnificent view of the Amigara Fault was of no importance, because her reasons for being at the mountain was far greater than some mysterious wonder. When Yoshida had seen the fault on the news, it was only a small glimpse, a mere second. When she'd seen it, her hole, meaning that one of these holes belonged to Yoshida, she swore that somewhere on this mountain is a hole that's her identical silhouette. Of course, Owaki had found it ridiculous, a bit egotistical. How exactly could something that's probably 1,000 years old be based off of Yoshida? And even though Owaki was having a hard time believing Yoshida, suddenly, there was one guy who believed her when overhearing her bizarre claims. His name was Nakagaki, and he too had felt the same way when watching the news, that somewhere on this mountain was his identical hole. In fact, that's the reason why most of the people had traveled to the Amigara mountain, just to look for their holes. And just recently, Nakagaki had finally discovered his. And you can't deny that it's a perfect fit. You could obviously see the reluctance on Owaki's face. Maybe there was a bit of jealousy seeing how this Nakagaki was probably some joker who was just trying to impress Yoshida. Or maybe he was a nut job who was looking for some attention when stripping himself down to his undergarments and performing a self-embarrassment stunt when stepping into the hole. But when Nakagaki's entire body had entered the human-shaped hole, his hole, it was like his entire body had perfectly settled itself into the hole before he began sliding into the vault. Like something was pulling him from within the mountain.
See?
Or like he was being consumed. And just as Nakagaki had went into the mountain, that's when Owaki and Yoshida had just witnessed a sudden horror. Nakagaki had just disappeared into the mountain.
That's what you get for bullshitting.
That day, the Enigma of the Amigara Fault had become a story that had turned its entire focus onto the man who had disappeared within one of the holes. When the rescue team was called in, they used a fiberscope to check the hole, 30 meters deep, and yet they couldn't find a single trace of Nakagaki. When one of the members of the rescue team decided to enter the hole, someone who was about 5'2", he only made it about 5 meters before he was pulled out. The fact was, Nakagaki had disappeared into the mountain, and even though people claimed that it was a stunt gone wrong, for some reason, Owaki felt that there was something more to this strange occurrence. It was an uneasy night for Owaki, where his moment of outdoor slumbering would be infected with the discomforting thoughts of Nakagaki. A claustrophobic nightmare of someone who was still within the hole, hundreds of meters within the mountain, finding himself facing an uncomfortable horror when being unable to move. That Nakagaki's perfect silhouette was now being twisted, and yet, very slowly, there was something that was still pulling his body through the twisted frame. Somewhere within the Amigara mountain was a foolish man who was now overwhelmed with a claustrophobic terror, spending his long and final moments screaming for somebody, anybody, to help him. The following day, the fact that there was still no sign of Nakagaki, that, my friends, was only the beginning of an unremitting horror. The man who walked into the hole had instantly made the news, but nobody had never expected that the following day there would be more people who would follow the same footsteps. Men and women who would strip themselves down to their undergarments and enter one of the holes after claiming that it was theirs. And much like Nakagaki, they too would disappear without a trace. But for Owaki and Yoshida, they were facing a much greater problem. You see, early in the morning before sunrise, that was when Yoshida would claim that she had finally discovered her hole. Even though people had begun disappearing when entering the holes, Owaki had still maintained his reluctance on believing that these ancient holes were built for specific people. Like Yoshida, for example. I mean, when Yoshida had shown him the hole, Owaki did admit that Yoshida and the silhouette were identical. But that doesn't mean that this hole was built for her. There was just no way. It had to be a coincidence. And regardless how much effort Owaki tried bringing Yoshida back to her senses, the girl was literally convinced that the hole was calling to her, telling her, "Come to me." That even though she felt that this hole offered nothing but a painful and traumatizing death, for some reason, no matter how hard she tried fighting it, the compulsion was becoming too great. Yoshida knew that very soon she was going into the hole, that she has to enter the hole. In a last effort to bring this madness to an end, Owaki had decided to fill Yoshida's hole with rocks, hopefully ease her compulsion by blocking her from entering the hole. Such a noble and unselfish effort. And even though our troubled Yoshida may have found himself within the arms of Owaki that night, a young man who had offered something that she had never experienced within her lonely and miserable life: companionship and true love. It's just too bad that Owaki had underestimated the true horror of the Amigara fault and its incredible power. The second night, Owaki had a dream, but not just any dream. It was like he was reliving a single moment in time, an ancient time. And even though this was a different time, the strangest thing about this dream was how familiar it was. Within this dream, Owaki had just committed a heinous crime and was being punished for his vile actions. Owaki didn't know what he did, but he knew that it was bad enough for him to receive the worst punishment for his crimes.
Death.
More like a death sentence. When being sent to a specific location within the mountains, an area that was secluded from the world and human civilization, there was a cliff where its walls were lined with countless holes for the other criminals who were executed in the past. It was said that when somebody would commit such a horrible crime, that's when they would create these human-shaped holes. It didn't take long before Iwaki would be brought before his hole. Just by gazing into the human silhouette, Iwaki knew that he was about to suffer greatly for what he did. A death that was so inhumane that even human civilization would later refrain themselves from using these holes again. When they left Iwaki near his hole, free from his restraints, it seemed like a careless act, an easy opportunity for Iwaki to make his escape.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Iwaki didn't want to leave. Just by gazing into the abyss of this hole, it was like some unknown force had ensnared him. Like his future, his purpose in life, had centered itself to this hole. He knew what was inside, and yet there was a compulsion to submit and accept his fate. So he stepped in. The stone walls were cold and smooth, a design that would force Iwaki's entire body into the darkened earth. It was when he began feeling a tug around his neck. Iwaki had felt the claustrophobic terror as his neck would stretch itself to the very point where his head should have been torn off. Even though it was just a dream, it felt like he was in that hole for months. Iwaki could even feel every painful minute, the pulling and unbearable pain as his entire body would be stretched out in several directions at once.
I didn't like his facial expression.
The last thing Iwaki remembered before waking up was desperately screaming for help. But when Iwaki had awakened from his traumatizing slumber in the dead of night, he was about to find himself facing a true nightmare when discovering that Yoshida was missing.
She went to the hole. Fuck.
Here's a fact, my friends. Life, it ain't fair. Doesn't really care about your destiny. A harsh lesson that Iwaki is going through right now when facing a horrible reality. Standing before Yoshida's hole in the pile of rocks that were taken out. It was a scene that had Iwaki begging, pleading for this to be somebody's sick idea of a joke. That maybe Yoshida had to step out for a moment. It must have been a couple hours, desperately searching the mountain, the tent, everywhere, and yet no Yoshida. Eventually, Iwaki had finally came to the realization of what had happened to Yoshida. But why? After these two lonely souls have found each other, a future where there is love, a purpose in life, and no more loneliness, why would she go into that hole? It must have been a coincidence when Iwaki had discovered it when accidentally dropping his flashlight. Or maybe it was fate. At first, it looked like any other hole. But giving it a second glance, that was when Iwaki had remembered it. It was the same hole from his dreams. You know something? The future. When you see it for what it truly is, it can be a scary thing, not knowing what's around the corner. It's like looking into this hole, staring into the abyss, fearing the terrible consequences that await from within. But when Iwaki had gazed into the ancient hole, that was when he began to realize something. For the first time, it felt like the world was cold. A very cold place. A world that offers nothing but sadness, pain, and horror. But looking into this hole, it had given Iwaki something of a warm and blissful feeling. Maybe there is nothing to fear with this hole. Maybe this whole time Iwaki was just scared to accept his fate, that his dreams of having a family, a purpose, a life where he's truly happy would come to this very moment, standing right before this hole, Iwaki's hole. And removing his clothing, preparing to make that courageous leap, Iwaki knew that it was all going to be okay now, because Iwaki is going to be very brave and accept his fate. I know that life can be quite complicated, and even though it's something that comes with its unexpected challenges, facing overwhelming obstacles and giving us the notion of a hopeless and miserable future, the fact is, we may not have the ability to choose our obstacles, but we will always have the ability to be the authors of our own story. And sometimes we may find ourselves facing a moment where our choices are narrowed down into two. Whereas one would offer bliss and happiness, as with the other would only bring misery and grief. Or so that's the way we see it. This is what happens when someone is looking into one of the human-shaped silhouettes. For the first time within somebody's life, when gazing into one of these holes, the world becomes very cold, and would normally choose the option that offers warmth, purpose, and happiness when taking that step into the very hole that calls their name. And even though there's a mystical pull, there is still the ability to choose. It's just that when someone is looking into one of these holes, it can be very hard to make the right choice. These holes, which were supposedly created during a barbaric time, and were meant for those who've committed the worst of crimes, it's most likely that they were not created through conventional methods, but through methods that are both unnatural and unearthly. A hole that is specifically created for a single individual, someone who was deemed monstrous enough for such a violent and inhumane fate. But what if something went wrong? Something that was overlooked when these holes begin feeding upon those who are of the same blood, including the future descendants. Maybe this is the reason why the holes were buried and had spent centuries of being kept hidden away from the world and human civilization, until a natural disaster would unravel one of humanity's most darkest secrets. As to what happened to those who had disappeared, it would be 3 months later before Japan would uncover the horrible secrets behind the holes, when a hiker had discovered the other side of the fault. Unlike the other holes, these holes were found to be thin and having no form. It was when someone had first glanced into one of these deformed holes, that was when Japan was introduced to the nightmarish fate of the missing victims, and introduced to the horrible truth behind the enigma of the Amigara fault. My friends, for any curious questions or curiosities, the best place to reach me is through my Twitter account, with the link in the description below. For those who want to add a jingle or two to my tip jar on Patreon, you'll find that in the description below as well.
Oh, hell no.
Until next time, my friends, thank you for watching the show.
Dude, like, goosebumps out the ass right now. I'll tell you one thing, shouts out again to you, Akira, for recommending this video, man. This kept me in suspense the whole time, bro. Like, I was just tense as fuck the whole time. Because I'll tell you one thing. Like I said, I'm not gonna talk much because I'm ready to just stop this video right now. But had they, you know, threw something out, had something moved, like that end of the video there, where the person was, I guess, crushed to death and was slowly sliding through the little cracks in the rock or whatever, when that last clip said, it's coming this way, fam, had that figure started moving towards the screen, oh, I would have lost my shit. Man, y'all, y'all, just know, it wouldn't have been pretty. I'm glad nothing in this video moved, like, physically moved, like, going from scene to scene, that's fine. But had anything moved, or had, like, once the screen went all white or all black, they just threw a random scary face at this. Oh my god. Low-key, I might have to look into some more of these, even though they kept me so tense. I don't know, fam. I don't know. Whatever y'all think, man. If y'all want to see me watch some more of these videos, man, just drop it down in the comments section. Message me, however y'all want to do it, man. Let me know. Do I want to? No. Because I'm fucking creeped out right now. But, I mean, for y'all enjoyment, I will. So, you know, let me down in the comment section what y'all want. And did you enjoy the video? Did you enjoy my reaction? And all that fun stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for watching my video. If you enjoyed the reaction, leave a like, a comment, and share the video. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and tap that bell icon so you will get notified every time your boy Steph drop new content, which I do 7 times a week. Before I end the video, you see this hot sauce right here? I meant to, you know, talk about this in the beginning. Man, I made some baked chicken for the first time ever, and that shit came out lit as fuck. And I had just smashed before I recorded this video. That's why that's there. And I might go back for seconds because that shit was on point. But that is it, y'all. Your boy Steph is out.